Hello and welcome to Season 3 of the Cooldown with myself and DoctorBenjy. Hello, Ben.
Hi, Matthew. I thought I'd do it rather than the balloon. I thought we had two options, it's me or the balloon. The balloon probably would have won more games this weekend, frankly, Matthew. It's good to be back. How are you? How are you feeling? We don't, outside of the Sunday and after the meeting, we said this before, right? We don't really talk that much, so I'd just like to check in, really. How are you?
Tired.
I feel that. Yeah, it was a long month. I was gonna say it's a long weekend. It is for everyone else, but it's a long month for us too. You more than anyone. But yeah, I think we look back at this weekend as a success. Hopefully you do as well.
No, I would agree. I think it is a lot of hard graft to get things, I guess, sorted. It's a lot of admin more than anything. And also with how the company side of things takes time. As well, and that's the bit that we haven't really had to deal with before. And so with the timing of the showdown plus expenses and the company needing to be filed all in the same month, it was a bit mental. Fortunately, I'd say we planned ahead. We kind of accidentally planned ahead for it to be this month, I think, but at least we were fortunate that it fell on. So I think we'd decided on the lineup before we even finished the season 2 of the showdown. Yeah, so we knew what we were expecting, what we were going to be doing. So we were able to sort of plan ahead, get things arranged, and so it was spread. The workload was spread out across more of the month than either a 2 or 1 week sort of crunch. That doesn't stop the 1 week showdown crunch from happening whatsoever. That still is very much a thing because unfortunately there are things that are time sensitive. We can't stop that, which it would be lovely if we could, but there's only so much we can mitigate for.
I had this idea about that we would get everything done earlier in the month, or we'd at least have plans in place earlier in the month, and that would make the last week feel like a breeze. Actually, all it did was triple the workload. So I really thought this is going to make things easier, and then it became a case of, oh, actually, no, this is just adding more to an already pretty hectic month. Yeah. Alongside, of course, we say this all the time, it's not what we do full time. So to try and to cram this in, my YouTube channel's collapsed as a result of not the showdown, but everything else going on. Which has been thrilling. So those who haven't seen this before, this is the Cooldown. Me and Matt talk about what happened in the showdown just gone and some of our thoughts to come. We've got some questions from you as well from Twitter that we're going to interact with. And of course, if you're not already subscribed to this channel, please get involved and do so. And leave any of your thoughts as well that you have over the course of the podcast or the show. Is it a show? I guess it's a show. Look at us here live.
Is it a show?
Pre-recorded. Just to give your thoughts throughout what we talk about in the comments down below. We love reading what people have to say, and if you enjoyed it, let us know as well. Maybe it was your first showdown. We had a ridiculous amount of people watching this time around, so yeah, it was great. Lots to talk about there, Matthew. Was it twist central? We did a few. There's one like the post-draft twist wasn't nearly as big as sometimes it is, but the pre-draft twist was the biggest we ever had. And who is number 9 dominated proceedings for the early part of the week. There's some really cool announcements. The reaction to those were great, but who is number 9 became the talk of the town, which was the plan. We wanted it to become the talk of the town. How did you? Well, tell people, how did it come about? How did we come up with who is number 9?
We were having the usual briefing we have post showdown on the Sunday of season 2, and as we were having a flurry of ideas about various other things, I think it got discussed as an idea. And I can't remember if it was yourself or someone else mentioned it, and then it became what it became from that point. We said about switching someone in or having a mystery manager, and then it sort of grew legs and arms, and then by the draft, a complete body, obviously. But that's where it started, and we thought, I mean, we've had the discussion with Dizz anyway, but we were wondering, who do we? It needs to be a big name, or it might be a bit of a damp squib in the end.
Well, we funny, isn't it? Because we always spoke about the idea of having a mystery person, a surprise person. So talked about years ago, actually. I'd say years ago, and we'd always said if we do a mystery person, it'd be you. And we always said that if we do it, you would be on there. We've got no one capable of doing your job. So it's quite difficult for it to be you. So that's the reality of it. Otherwise, we probably would have done it sooner. So yeah, Dizz was the Dizz selection is there for a number of factors. One, he's already on the lowdown, so you know who he is. So we never had a situation where everyone was going to go, who? It's like the guy there that sat there. You're always going to know who it is. Within the scene and the community, he's very well loved, very well liked as well. Some great stuff on his own personal stuff. And we knew that it was, again, we talk about risks that we have in the showdown. Dizz was a risk, but not a huge risk. And we kind of knew that going in. We were pretty confident he'd say yes and he'd fly with it and run with it. His reaction was great. And Matthew, not only that, but we spoke to him. Before we started recording this, we grabbed a quick word of Dizz for you guys to watch at home. We spoke to Dizz about how he thought mystery number 9 would go and how it went. We are joined by Mr. Dizz TV, looking like he's won a competition. He's with me and Matthew. Dizz, it was quite the weekend, and it probably wasn't quite what you were expecting. How did you find the twist that everyone was looking forward to?
So, mystery number 9, I was really looking forward to it as well. I was all over it. You saw me on social media. I like playing along with this kind of stuff, and I was fascinated. I thought you guys had spent some time on this. You've obviously going to build it up. It's going to be somebody really big, so somebody really good at Football Manager. Maybe even somebody like Miles. I know you speak to Football Manager, so the twist was. I loved the twist. I was fully on board with it as a low-down panel member.
Yeah, it changed quite quickly. It was like, because me and Matt had many instances. Funny you mentioned that you thought it was going to be someone huge, because there were quite a few instances where me and Matt sort of always looked each other in the eyes and said, this is for Dizz. This is going to be for Dizz. But actually, I think most people agreed it ended up, you were the perfect person that it was for. Your reaction to it was really good. Who did you think it was going to be then? Because you messaged me a name. Did you have more names in the catalogue of who it could be?
So I thought it would either be Spencer. So Spencer, I thought was a given. I was so convinced it was Spencer. Huge name, hasn't done it since Football Manager 20. Streams Football Manager regularly. So I thought my number 1 pick was Spencer. But then I thought Lelujo. And I was thinking, is this an ultimate plan for him to be involved and Ben to win, if that makes sense, with him getting minimal prep time? So I thought part of the story, maybe Lelujo. But yeah, they were the 2 main names. I was thinking FNG potentially, keep the narrative with Lelujo and FNG. However, I knew it was a race weekend, so he was a bit further down my list. So it was one of those 3, but mainly Spencer or Lelujo.
He's a keen jockey, FNG, for those who are not familiar.
At least he's not the horse.
No, that's true, very true. But I think the best moment, and we should always like, I don't know if, sorry Matt, I'm giving you extra admin here. We always run a clip of Dizz's reaction as we talk about it. There is this 10-second pause where I'm thinking, he's disconnected. He doesn't know what's happened. But it was also like, that was, I don't know, Matt, you talk about it, right? Because we didn't know how you would react. That was our big thing. Like, Matt, you weren't sure and I wasn't sure.
No, well, the fact that we'd planned, so we'd obviously had to line up a lowdown replacement, or alternatively a replacement manager if you just weren't feeling it, because it could have gone one of a multitude of ways, and we'd had to sort of have eventualities just in case you sort of say, you know what, I can't do this, or I don't want to do it, because that would have, that could have happened. Yeah. And so I mean, the biggest thing that has surprised me about of all of it, regardless of the reaction, which was fantastic, was Ben managing to keep quiet and not tell many people.
Thank you.
Loose links sinks ships, and it's usually Ben that lets things slip to the wrong people because he just gets giddy around. We've all seen him get giddy around showdown time, and I think he was sort of you were managing to sort of, I guess, offload some of the giddiness via Twitter and a little bit of teasing to the right people, as well as the occasional mentions about it on streams. But you did very well, so congratulations to you anyway. Shouldn't
be. I know what you're like, Matt. You're also thinking this shouldn't be an achievement. He really shouldn't be. He really shouldn't be saying anything. Just be shutting.
But I feel like if I give you a pat on the back, you might continue and self-development.
and all of that.
well, we had the YouTube meeting on the Sunday before, didn't we? And I was asking, who is it? And then Matt was like, no. And Matt was like, Ben, if you're tempted to say the name, leave now. And I was like, Matt, you can leave. Because normally, right, like Ben, like, not in a bad way, but like, I think we've got a bit of a relationship. I feel like
had one. So you get out with me now. What's going on?
I feel like we speak sometimes, and I felt like maybe, but no, fair play to you, Ben. I was really proud of you.
Well, you asked me, that was funny actually, that night, Dizz, when, will I be able to interview the person who the mystery person is? I sort of sat back, will you be able to interview the person? Will you? Yes, you will, Dizz. Yes, you will be able to interview the person. Well, turns out, no, actually, you won't. But my big line, like the way I sort of sold it, to especially so Dizz and no one else really thought it was them. People kept asking me, oh, do they know? I went, oh, yeah, of course they know. Like, of course the person knows. I said, who knows? I went, oh, me, Matt Proudy, and the person that it is. So obviously that made everyone else think, well, it can't be me because I don't know. Yeah. So, but all of that was just aimed at Dizz. Every time I saw Dizz in my chat, I was
like everything was planned though. Like even to the point where we had to get new lowdown ties for the panel because the grain chill quote unquote ties they're out of stock now, so we can't get them. So we ordered one to Dizz as well. So he had. Like we played him a kipper, really, to be honest. Like,
if anything, Matt, this has cost us money. Like,
it has.
It has. The fact that we've made nothing from this.
Yeah, I was going to say the return isn't worth it.
Some of the things. So to go back to the reaction, Dizz, going back and watching everyone's reaction to you was so wholesome. Were you surprised at the reaction that you got? Because I'll be honest, Dizz, I was a bit surprised that it was almost universally like everyone sort of went, "This is so great," or the biggest reaction I saw was, "He doesn't know," which was also great. But how did you feel about the reaction?
So, I was seriously so warmed. Like when I saw the lowdown chat afterwards. I watched it afterwards. I don't think I went to sleep till like 4 o'clock in the morning. The day after, I was literally buzzing. My adrenaline didn't dump until about 4 p.m. the next day, because I was still buzzing, and I watched everyone's chat, and I watched Zealand's chat, and I watched Tom's chat, I watched everyone's chat, and I was really touched, and that's why I hinted at it yesterday when I got eliminated. You know what? Ultimately, I'm not a competitive person unless there's something to compete for. So unless I'm like really into it, but when I feel love, I can't be competitive. Like I just want to have fun and I want to give something back. And that's why I was like, on the Saturday, I bought out Big Baller Dizz. I bought out a tracksuit. I bought out the headband as well. And like, I just wanted to have fun with everyone because I knew I drafted a rubbish team, but I just, the reaction from everybody, it did surprise me, but it's so nice to be thought of in that way in this community and that they all loved it, because ultimately, even I was disappointed. I'm not going to lie. So
we weren't though. I don't know about you, Matt. I got exactly what I wanted. That was when it happened. This reaction, the reaction of everyone. It was exactly what I was hoping it would be like. But it was probably our biggest risk of all the risks we've taken, of all the people we've had involved. Not knowing how this would react, we had lots of conversations about it.
Yeah, it could have gone. Well, I sort of alluded to it. We had to plan around any potential sort of reaction, but I think, Dizz, you're not great at acting, and so so we knew the reaction was genuine because your face was like, what? And to be honest, I'd forgotten to, because what I was going to do is share the OBS screen so you could see what was going on, more for the draft thing. So it's in, and that would have been the line would have been, I'm sharing it this time so you can all see what's going on. But obviously then you would see your reaction live and see the stream, obviously, because when you're watching the lowdown stream, you've got the delay and then everyone else is creasing up and you're like, what's everyone laughing at? And then all of a sudden you realise the penny drops and then everyone else is sort of in on the joke as well.
Your little Dizz.
I just want to add that. Yeah, I just want to mention that. But so my lag was only about half a second behind. So I saw myself on screen, but you see me on camera. Look to the left, and I looked to the left to see, are you guys still there? Yes, you are, because I had the Video Ninja where we see each other live. To the left, you see me glance to the left, because I see myself on screen. I'm thinking maybe they just want my reaction. And then when I hear you say, when you say hi Dizz, I'm like, what? Like, you did all of this for me? Like, genuine, that was what it was. All of this for me. But no, for me personally, like there was never a risk of. I mean, I know from your guys' side there is, and you've always got a plan for just in case. So I understand that. But from me personally, there was never a risk that I wasn't going to do it. It was all for the content. It was all for the love, and I had a great time.
Yeah, I think me and Matt, even our biggest risks aren't that risky. I mean, that's the thing me and Matt have always sort of stuck to. Briefly on the weekend, then you didn't win. Many of us didn't. So, how did you find being the difference between a lowdown and a showdown weekend is quite different. Like the energy level is obviously quite different as well. How did you find it as an experience, not just from a case of being in it, but actually like mentally having to prepare to be in a showdown compared to a lowdown?
So the showdown, so the draft part was obviously just like, oh my god, what do I do? And then panic, Harry Kane. Oh my god, I researched Christian Eriksen, I called him elite. I've got to draft. I've got to pick him. And then I'm like, oh, I've spent loads of money, and I've still got my lowdown prep on this screen. So I was like, okay, fine. You know what? Everyone else has had a few days.
You say your lowdown prep. It was everyone else's lowdown prep that you used.
My name was on it as well. If your name's on it, I
you
can
picked
claim
Eriksen. Of your list, you picked Eriksen. That was it. You started.
Damsgaard.
I mean, 2 players out of an 18, and you picked more of Kev's picks than anything.
Well, you know what it was as well? Like Curtis said, Ben Yedder did really well for him. So Ben Yedder stuck into my head, so I got Ben Yedder. And that's what it was. It was just constantly like things that people had said that kind of slipped into my head at the time. But then, I picked the team. I knew it was at my best draft. I always knew it was going to be that way as soon as I picked Kane, to be fair. And I was really pumped and excited. But then I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to do? And then I ordered the big baller outfit. So that was great fun. So I had priorities, and then on the Saturday it was just a case of trying to make it all work in relation to the draft part. But what I want to say is, obviously it's my first Streamer Showdown, and then there's me, there's RDF, and there's Holly. Us three have never been in Streamer Showdowns before. What I will say is though, the way, and I wanted to say this on Twitter, but I've been tweeting like a million things, so they might get lost in translation, but like the way, Ben, you looked after us, like you told us exactly what was going to happen. You helped us on, and everyone else as well. To be fair, Zealand, Jack, Tom, they were all getting involved. Stinger as well, like moving us on, putting us at ease. Mike helped me prep some of the stuff earlier on. So the way all that was done was really professional and really warming, because at no point did I feel lost. If I had a question, I asked it. Yep, this is what you do. Job done. Move on. And it was really good and easy for me to slot in, because I've never been on that side before. The lowdown is such a well-oiled machine, and I think I'm part of that machine now, as in I feel like I know what I'm doing. Although it's growing and it's growing and it's growing, I always feel like I can just add a little bit more to it. But with this, it was it was different, but it was good different. Yeah. And ultimately,
the pressure.
I didn't win.
Ultimately, you didn't. You were closer than me. But it's funny, isn't it? Because just very briefly on that, then. So obviously, having done the lowdown a lot and then been thrown in, you feel the pressure is different, isn't it? Because the pressure goes from not wanting to make a mistake to not wanting to not wanting to look stupid. Like the pressure level changes. Suddenly, it's not a case of I've got to nail all the points I want to make. It's a case of my people are watching here, and if I get this right, and then everyone else's people watch as well. If you get it wrong, you are there set for ridicule from lots of people in a very, very short space of time. And you did pretty well to avoid that, really. Well,
the Saturday thing for me was a lot of people reached out and tried to help me, and I wanted to kind of reward them all. So people, I think Kev called me Formation Man, which, hey Ben, me and you. Friends, twins.
I'll send a little Dizz if that's all right. But, yeah.
I'm going to release a T-shirt. But I was constantly tweaking because I was appeasing my audience, to be fair, because I felt like it was kind of like all of us. But then I kind of submit to Kev's. It's a Sunday game. I just wanted to finish 7th. I finished 7th. I kind of had a more settled tactic for the game against Holly in the quarterfinals. I expected to lose. I'd run some. I'd kind of seen her team, seen how she'd performed. I expected to lose, so I was going into that with no pressure. As far as I was concerned, like I said in my exit interview, I felt like I'd won already, just with all the love shown, because it's all swings and roundabouts, right? It's like, what do you think that's important? And you guys know exactly what's going on, and you guys have been absolutely brilliant. And I genuinely felt like I'd won already, so and I'm happy to lose to Holly, a fellow Brummie.
Yeah, annoying that, isn't it? They're breeding. Too many of them. They're multiplied. But no, it was great having you on, Dizz, and we really appreciated it. And your reactions were great. I think people loved having you involved. And yeah, we'll see where you end up next time. Who knows? Might be another mystery. Thank you, Dizz. We'll catch up again soon.
Thank you very much. And you guys were great. And thank you. And I'll see you later.
In a bit. So there he is, Matthew. His little face. He couldn't believe we chose him, can he? He cannot believe we chose him. I can't believe we chose him. The amount of times we sort of back and forth went, why on earth? We should have done it for you. The amount of people that we could have had Miles Jacobson. Those that thought it was Griezmann or something like that.
I mean, yeah.
Very, very misled. Very misled.
I mean, I think we're fortunate that the reaction from everyone sort of papered over the fact that it may have been quite underwhelming. And I think, as Dizz said in our little chat with him, it was very wholesome. Everyone's reaction to it. So it was nice to see, not just from, but everyone else on social media. Like you were saying about the hype from the announcement, everyone really got, everyone loved it. Like I don't think I saw a bad word mentioned about it. And normally people on the internet like saying bad things about things and picking fault.
I was thinking, because if you look hard enough, you'll find it. And I was thinking, who slagged it off then? And even like that, I couldn't find it anywhere. Most people thought, and what I felt really nice, I tweeted about it actually. My favorite thing is how the other competitors reacted to it, because nobody knew. Like that was the crucial element to the whole thing. The lowdown panel did not know. Dizz himself did not know. At some point, I wondered if we knew, but like nobody knew. None of the people involved knew. Obviously, no one watching knew. The only people that knew were Ellie, my partner Ellie, you, me, Proudy, and I confided in my friend Harrison. Someone had to know. So it was a case. I had to let someone had to just take it from me. I was like, I've got to tell someone. So yeah, a few people knew, but again, not letting Dizz know was the crucial bit. But it paid off, and as we said to Dizz, like the reaction we got was exactly what exactly what you wanted. It was exactly what I wanted.
Oh, it was exactly what I expected from like his face. Like was the picture I was expecting, like the cluelessness, and then transitions to really, and then finally acceptance.
Yeah, we talked about before, right? That I won't always win a showdown, but I like the moment. So with this, for me, it was very much let's create a moment. Like whatever happens, let's have that and look forward to it. And people were so keen for it as well. That's what made it so exciting for me. People were so excited to see who it would be and how it would be received. And again, I thank you to everyone watching. The reaction to Dizz was so good that who knows, maybe we'll do another mystery person. We've got everything sorted for it now. We've got it set up. But yeah, maybe we'll do another mystery person in the future. Maybe we'll do a mystery. The entire thing might be a mystery. Who knows? Will it even happen? It's just you on your own for the whole show.
Just sit there.
Yeah, that'd be good. But yeah, so that sort of kicked off our weekend, and with the setup of it and the execution of it, I think it went really well again, as we wanted it to. But he wasn't the only new person involved in a showdown. We took some major risks, didn't we? As we like to say. We invited a couple of newbies involved. Holly Plays and RDF Tactics both joined us. And to keep that it's funny, wasn't it? We got quite a lot of criticism in the last one for not having new people, knowing full well these two were primed and ready to be in the next one. And that's a conversation we'd had at the time. We recorded this one knowing they were in. There's even a point where I say, we've got an idea of who's in the next one, knowing that you're all going to be happy.
We'd already locked them in. We'd already decided and had them agreed. Before
we had to keep it quiet for that, because the moment they both had that moment themselves with their own reveals. Holly kept it pretty quiet. RDF kept it really quiet. Nobody knew that they were going to be in either, to the point where we kept it from Jack. We didn't.
I think that was the best bit about Holly's reveal, was that Jack had no idea until he had an idea about it.
RDF and Holly were both streaming their reactions to being in, and Jack's in the chat like, what? Because me and Holly lied to Jack for 2 months and said she couldn't make it, said she was working. So Holly and Jack are really good friends. So I thought, I get to mess with Jack before the weekend even begins. What a treat. So I did. So that was really good. And what a performance from the pair of them. Taken away, and we'll come back to it, how good they both were as sort of entities within the showdown. They both did really well on different days.
No, absolutely. RDF dominating the league stage, didn't really have to. It seemed like he didn't even break a sweat and took everything in his stride. And then obviously Holly goes and wins the whole thing. I wouldn't even say it's out of nowhere. It was fully deserved. She lost to RDF in the league, but she came second.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I mean, the whole myth about league winners or people who finish high up in the league can't win a showdown that's gone. That's been gone for a while, but it's fully confirmed now that if you do well in the league, you have every chance to take home the title as well.
It was interesting, wasn't it? Because to me, they were perfect examples of what we've been saying for a very long time, in that at the point in which they're ready, you will all know about it, and they are on our radar. And when they join in, you will see the best versions of them. And I'm a big believer in that we got both of them. I'm so proud of both of them, actually. I thought, again, it's a difficult environment to come into. We spoke to Dizz about it, right? Someone that's been involved before, the pressures change. And for new people entirely, it's a big, again, some people might call this arrogant. It's a big step up to be involved in a showdown at this point. There was a lot of people watching on the Sunday. Saturday's action was pretty ruthless as well. And I thought they both handled it so well. Like, it's not easy to do, but they flew through, much like Stinger did right in the season before, but they both flew through and looked really good. Like, just being themselves and being streamers. And that's sometimes the hardest thing about streaming, is just being yourself. But they both carried themselves brilliantly.
Well, the thing is, it's not just the streaming aspect of it as well, and being in a call with everyone else and how that is run behind the scenes. There's also all of the admin bits that they need to do, all of the adding of ad boards, other bits and pieces that we throw at them. We even added it so we actually have a clean feed of their camera when we interview them now, and that was an extra step that we'd not done before for anyone. But this is their first showdown. This was the time I decided we need to pull the trigger now. Like, I want that to happen so people can actually see people's faces, and they managed that absolutely fine as well. It's not just the pressure of actually being in the event, the pressure cooker of I'm going to say a competitive environment to a point. But then also having to make sure that they're on time and doing all of the other bits and pieces, making sure that they're ticking all of the boxes that we need them to in terms of showdown prep to be ready for actually doing it. All of the bits that nobody at home gets to see, because we have people involved, but they also, we have the photo shoot that we have to factor in, so that they need to make themselves available for that, and then all of the other bits as a result of that, off the back of being able to improve things. Like, none of that happens without their sort of total commitment to the weekend, basically.
That's fair. Well, it's relatively demanding for people. Like, for those that have never been involved before, to throw yourself into, oh, by the way, here's a 20-page document of what we require. Like, it's to someone, I imagine it's quite daunting for both of them to look at. I know, I spoke to Holly. It was for Holly. She was like, what on earth? What is happening here? Why have I got to read the Bible before I begin? So I was like, yeah, go through this. Matt's written it. It's detailed. Because she said it's quite detailed. I went, yeah. And if you say you don't know where something is, read the guide again, because it'll definitely be in there. And I like the fact the guide you've written is very much you won't need to ask me what to do, because it's there, and you've covered every single base. I love the guide. I've not read it in months, but I'm sure it's good. Like, I'm sure it's really good. I don't read the guide. I was gonna say I wrote the guide. I wasn't near the guide. It was very much Matt's own work. But no, a phenomenal weekend. And again, I do find it interesting, because it's a point of contention. Like, we've talked about our selection processes, we've talked about having new people, 3 new showdowners this time around, which is always the plan. Actually, we're always going to have 3 new ones, and one of them, of course, ended up being Dizz. But with Holly and RDF specifically, and I don't think they'll mind me saying this, because I think they would probably admit the same thing themselves, is that had I put them in 3 months ago or 6 months ago, firstly, Holly wasn't even streaming 6 months ago. Like, that's how ridiculous her rise has been. And with RDF, he was sort of here and there. People were going, get him in the showdown. It's like, he doesn't stream, so I really need to see what he's like as a streamer before I put him in a Streamer Showdown. But even as little as 3 months ago, I didn't think either of them were ready. There was a conversation we had. I didn't think either were quite at the point where they would fit in comfortably and feel comfortable being involved. And I think you probably knew, again, from the moment that we already selected them in, but you obviously met them both in the last month, and I'm sure you felt in those moments, oh yeah, both of these guys will be absolutely fine with what we need. And the pair of them, again, were really good. But that it goes back to the idea of, it's okay to just wait and take your time, so that when they come in, they impress everyone. Like, again, the reaction to Dizz was great, but the reaction to those two was so good. Everyone loved them. Like, the vibes of the whole showdown were very, very different, actually, with them both involved. I think people love seeing new people, and equally see new people do well, because we've had new people come in before and it's a bit of a slog. Like if Saturday goes badly, they're thinking, why did I sign up to this? I remember there's a few. Like, I remember Luke's first one wasn't particularly good. Clates really struggled when he first came in. James Orcott had a really difficult time when he came in. There's been moments where, whether they're like a big name in the community or not, like it's a difficult environment to be in if it's not going well. Yes, we've had people win it, right? Manny, FNG started off really well. McKinn's is another one more recently. But man, it can go the other way. And the fact they flourished was infuriating because I'm sitting there at the bottom of the table thinking, what's going on here? Why was this? How have we let this occur? But from a showdown perspective, I'm thinking, this is great. Like, I'm loving this. And it was lovely to see.
No, I think that is the one benefit that I get to see what they're like as people in a non-showdown setting, and actually get to have conversations with people, which, you know, I'm not going to say post-COVID because COVID is still a thing, obviously. But that's one of the best things that we've had or been able to do this time round for this game cycle is not just being able to improve the production with, you know, getting photos and videos of them, but being able to actually meet people in an environment that they're comfortable with, and getting to know them as people, and maybe settle their nerves as well, so they're familiar with at least one of us. I mean, Holly is very much part of the cumulative Discord, we'll call it. But RDF was very like new to the group. I don't think he'd really been involved with any of us before, so I think that actually really helped. I think it maybe settled his nerves a little bit as well, to think that we're actually just normal people at the end of the day, and we're not going to bite.
No, but we make a big point of that. Like, that's become part of our process. You know, meeting people and being able to talk to them. And I always spend as much time as I can, really. Like, I'll always give them an hour or two before a showdown just to run them through what's going to happen, what they can expect. If they've got any questions, we're always available to have answers. And again, they reacted brilliantly, and I think if you asked them both, they had an absolute ball. I mean, they'd be crazy not to with the way it went. Like, they had such a good time, and we saw the best of both of them, which again is what you want. You want to see again, I don't mean performance. I mean as streamers. RDF, every time he scores a goal, he's absolutely loving it. You know, he's dancing away. Holly's making the biggest mess I've ever seen, and Kevin Chapman's been in lowdowns and showdowns. Sorry, you know, and he loves a condiment. So it was fascinating to see,
especially on the windowsill.
You know, it happens. You know, we've all been caught out before, but no, it's so lovely to see Holly in such a good mood, streaming, because again, it can be quite daunting. We had situations with Kimi before where we were very conscious of making sure that she felt comfortable on a lowdown panel if anything happens, and we run Holly through the same thing in the same way that we run RDF through the same thing in the same way. And this is the important bit. We run everyone through the same thing. Everyone is given the exact same line of, if this happens, this is what will happen. Don't worry. Everything is going to be, we have everything under control. All you've got to do is be you and stream and read the 27-page guide. And apart from that, you'll be fine. And obviously we'll talk about the final, I'm sure, later on in the podcast. But podcast, again, I'm still not sure.
You are changing.
I really don't know. I'll be in a hoodie by the end of this, because it'll be podcast or show hoodie. I don't know which one. But no, it's really good. And again, speaking of new people, Luke came back as well, and it was great to see Luke. He'd been out for a little while, done a few of the other competitions, but to come in straight away for Dizz, and again hit the ground running. Like, there's a reason we chose him, because we kind of knew we'd done the lowdown before. I'm sure it was easy for you.
Oh, absolutely. I think Luke's great on the lowdown. I mean, he's a great competitor as well. Like, he's got the whole wrestling gimmick that he sort of has, that his own crossover between both of his lives in content creation, which is a fascinating little thing that we have going on. But on the lowdown, yeah, he's great. I don't know if it's the same persona, but the fact he's got great database knowledge anyway of you know, all of the players. He was able to, even if we had to keep him on the side, like, so I was sending him all of the information away from everything, and they were so all of the pre-draft prep, he was involved, but he, like, just to make sure that Dizz didn't have a clue. It was like, oh, he's just a backup, but he's going to be helping in the background. To make sure that, like, and login data and things like that, so that it wasn't completely obvious, but also he could be involved with all of the preparation ahead of time. But yeah, it was great to have Luke back.
Yeah, and speaking of the lowdown, you had him on. I let you control him for a weekend because I'm sick of him. You had Kevy 7 times. Lelouch made his way to the lowdown panel, and pleasantly surprised everybody. I think he was great. Like he's as he said to me many times, I'm a professional, Brent. Yeah, okay, yes, Kevin, I get it.
Hear that sentence a number of times.
Yeah.
Fortunately, the one sentence I only heard once was "did a football" or insert name "did a football." I only heard it once over the entire weekend, which for Kevin is very good.
I should have set up a Kevin jar. Anytime he does a Kevinism, we have to fine him. So
a Kevism is fine. Yeah.
Well, I should have said, like, every time you say anything Kevinisms, I'm gonna take a showdown away. So by the end of it, you'd have been Kevin 2 times, and you wouldn't like that. So we have to be very careful. But no, but he was great. Like I knew he'd be great, but I knew he'd be great now. We talked, like I said to Kev a few years ago, like he was like, "Oh, get me on the lowdown." I went, no, she won't be very good on the lowdown. But now he's got the gravitas of winning because and he can talk about that from his experience of, well, this is how you win. So now we've got him as sort of that winner. That's the role he plays. He can basically say to anyone else, you don't know what you're doing, which is kind of fine for me. And then, because he doesn't know players outside of the Premier League, no one needs to pretend like he doesn't. He's when it comes to tactical, when it comes to player knowledge, clueless. But he's not there for that. And as long as you've got people like Luke and like Dan and like Katie around him that can carry Kevin in those areas, there is lots of experience he's got within showdowns that is invaluable when it comes to a lowdown panel. As he said, there's never been a panel with more winners than that one, which. Yeah, I sort of hated and loved that at the same time.
I mean, but also it was actually a really good panel that we put together because Kev has all of the experience of winning it multiple times, but we also had Curtie, who he'd recently beaten in a final, and Dan, who he'd beaten in a final in FM20 season 7 or 8, maybe even earlier than that.
Dan will hate if I don't say. Dan does have a winning record against Kev. He's one of very, very few people to have beaten Kev more than Kev has beaten him. But yeah, the final did happen. So sorry, Dan. But yeah, still impressive.
That red card.
We've all been there. Good Lord, we've all been there. So yeah, it was nice to see a different type of lowdown panel, a different showdown as well in terms of the 9. And let's go to the draft then, because we saw some conflicting styles. Like the draft overall, the pool was the 10 nations that had already qualified for the World Cup. Obviously, it was a European qualifier weekend, so it made sense to do it. And yeah, really interesting because Zealand, who won last time, chose spot number 3 to draft from. And what a genius, because 1 and 2 are cursed, apparently. I don't know what happened. Me and Mike were like, number 1, number 2, I'm waiting for my number to come through. I'm like, here we go, now we're talking. Because 2 I was pretty happy with. I just wasn't happy with the player. But then again, that was my decision. But yeah, so Z drafts in the way that Z drafts knowing exactly what he wants for the system that he's planned for and kind of knows it's going to work. Mike always drafts for the same system, but again, a system that got into a final last time. So obviously felt like, well, why would I change it? It worked really well. I haven't got a clue what I'm doing, which is hilarious.
The irony is, though, you had a clue what you were doing. Like, I saw your draft prep.
It was just a bad clue. Just a really bad clue. I've really got to figure things out, Matthew. Well, I'm sure we'll come to me in a moment. I'm looking forward to it. Holly basically Joed up and became Kev and had a very Kev-like draft, but as we saw, was pretty successful with it. But how can we not talk about him? And the rest of them do what they always do, shambles. But RDF changed things up. His first pick was Goosens, which came out of absolutely nowhere. And then he went for Gardevoir. So he spent 850k on his second pick. He's bought a left back first pick. I said to him afterwards, I was like, nobody would have taken him for 4 or 5 rounds. You'd have been fine, but he had a plan.
No, well, it seemingly worked for him. I mean, we were questioning the lack of strikers, like out and out strikers he was drafting, because it got sort of later and later and later into the draft, and he still hadn't selected. He only had Callum Wilson at one point. He got Fekir very late on, but Fekir had a fantastic tournament, so egg on our faces, and we were quite happy to sort of say we were wrong, but he knew what tactics he was going to play. That's what he does. he creates tactics videos.
If you put tactics in your name, you better be bloody good at them. Let me tell you, otherwise that is embarrassing. Yeah, it's like calling yourself absolutely. A doctor, but not knowing about medicine. But no, it was really impressive. Like it was fun to see someone do it differently. Like, because we so often see first round of picks is really predictable, second round of picks is really predictable, even third round is pretty predictable. Like his one, I didn't know what was going on. I think Holly had a great line actually. She was watching RDF's first 2 picks and she went, am I doing this right? Am I doing like which was very, very funny. But he soaked it up. That's what was so good about it. He took some of the criticism from the lowdown. He took some of the heat we gave him on the showdown, and absolutely ran with it. So as a showdown format, I thought it was good, like with the 10 nations and the 400 million. But I thought the styles of draft were really good. Like it was Foxy-esque, right? It was having someone like Foxy in that drafts in a different way to everybody else. And even if they don't win, I just love it because the talking points you can take from it and some of the conversations we can have around it are really exciting.
Well, when we do the pre-draft prep, part of what we do now is we do like a test draft basically, and we have people that are going to be involved over the weekend, not as competing, but in the background, in the production truck, as I've started calling it, and then those that are actually on the lowdown. So we actually do a proper 9-person draft, so we can see what would happen with the budget we've selected and with the draft pool we've selected. And what I normally do, I try to test different, like not theories, but different. I try to mimic people's styles of drafting, and the past couple I've tried to mimic Z's style of draft just to see what I could potentially get, rather than going for a big name first, going for someone who is part of the plan. Admittedly, I wouldn't necessarily play the same tactic as Z, but go for a player that fits the profile I'm looking for, rather than the big name or the one everyone would expect you to pick, and also seeing how possible it is to get some big names at the end of the draft when you've got 200 million of the 400 million left and everyone else is completely spent. So it's going to be interesting trying to mimic how RDF drafted this time.
Yeah, you have to know, right?
Season 4 prep.
Yeah, you have to know what he's going to do on Saturday to know what he's going to do on Wednesday, which is
exactly. It was like 4D chess. Like he knew exactly what he was doing, and he was completely confident in what he was going to do over the weekend, so much so that he just took it all in his stride. All of the, I would say criticism, it was more just like, we're not saying Fakir is an awful player. It was just like, you clearly have a plan, but also if plan A doesn't work, you don't have a plan B to fall back on.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one thing that we've always said for most people. And Mike, he found out that it's the perfect example, goes in with a defined tactic, drafts for said tactic, and then when it doesn't work, doesn't know where to move to, and therefore he persisted with that 5-2-1-2 he was playing over the entire weekend, despite it really not working for him. Admittedly, he had a bit of poor luck when it came to red cards, and so his statistics when it came to his actual performances were slightly off kilter with what you would expect, because he was down to 10 men in multiple games and then he got thumped. But also you need to plan for those eventualities, especially, maybe we will have to now that we've seen like the red card statistics for this past showdown anyway.
Yeah, it's like I said, that takes us to the weekend really. That takes us to Saturday, in that RDF again ran away with the league. Holly ran in pretty close, and it was quite tight amongst 7 of the other competitors. Do I open the floor, Matthew? Do I say ask what you want? I don't know I don't know.
I'm
is the
going to
answer
ask it anyway. I'll ask it anyway.
Okay, please do.
What were you thinking is going to be my first question.
That's going to be clipped up. Someone's going to go somewhere. There was just this moment of, what were you thinking? Like, yeah, great. So my initial, this is like I've been arrested. It's like, well, you've worn a traffic code in the centre of London and nothing else. What were you thinking? Similar to that. I had this idea that I didn't get, so stupid. I didn't get SMS. Tom took SMS so much earlier than I thought. So my plan was to have a triangle of something like Mbappe, SMS, and Griezmann. Not Griezmann, Fakir, of all people I know now, after RDF ran away with him. But because Griezmann was still there, I thought, I've got the chance here to have Griezmann, who plays killer balls, towards Mbappe. And I drafted 3 or 4 players who could try killer balls or would play killer balls. And I thought, well, if there's one man who's going to run onto them, it's Kylian Mbappe. What can possibly go wrong, Matthew? I thought. It turns out if you don't play him the ball, enough that he won't score, and even if you do, he still won't score because he's awful. So I very much, I think it was obviously said on the lowdown as well, right? If Mbappe doesn't play well for me, I am in some major trouble. But if he's finishing off chances, well then guess what? My midfielders are suddenly playing a lot better. My fullbacks are playing a lot better. Just in pure performance, because oh my god, it's the worst I've ever had. Like I'll say it now, I will never have a showdown team play that badly ever again. Like, I don't know. And as much as Mike, right, stuck with the same tactic throughout, I played 17 before Sunday. I played 17 different tactics. I was like, I'll try everything. I'll try every system known to man. And the one that works is a stupid little 3 at the back with defensive. Kylian Mbappe as a defensive winger pops in with a 7.8 rating.
The thing is, like, I said it on the lowdown. Like, you rolled back the years. That was just your Salford formation.
Very similar. It was a DM instead of a CM, 6 AMs, right? Like
Jeff Thomas, not in Kylian Mbappe, though.
Well, that's what, again, that position in that system, apparently, if you play that kind of thing with a 3, that position becomes elite. And I didn't dare play against Mike the next day. I probably should have done, because I was rolling Tom and got a little bit unlucky with his power. But he had that 3 forwards system, and I knew Mike played the same thing. I thought, I'm just going to get rolled if I play it again. Like, that 3 at the back is just going to get destroyed. So, yeah, I couldn't necessarily take the risk. I wish I could explain. Like, I don't know if I just don't. It's funny, because people won't believe me, but my next showdown performance, whenever that is, because I might be taking a sabbatical, but whenever that is, I will show people that if you want me to really try and win, then I can get pretty close, I reckon. But I'm trying to win in my way. And the problem is, Matt, I've been thinking that for about 2 years, knowing it doesn't work. But I'll keep trying to win my way, which is to win in a way that no one else plays in, really. Like, stylistically, there's probably a good reason for that, looking at the results. But yeah, I'm trying to win in a certain way. If you want me to draft like Kev or like Holly Dizz, then I can. Like, I know how to do it. I know how to set up that plan, and I know how to execute it. You pick really good players who have 20 to 30 million, who are all of very similar standards, and you just stick with the same formation and play it. And that works.
Amazing.
That tends to work pretty well.
Consistency helps. I mean, I don't think, like, Mbappe, Griezmann were both awful. This won't make you feel any better, but I used you when I was testing the database. I used your team as the litmus test, basically, to make sure it worked. And the tactic that I used was the tactic I've been using in one of my personal saves. And admittedly, it's not against humans, I will add that, but Amin Ghouri was incredible. He was the key man. And I can't say anything. I've got to be like reasonably impartial. But he was the key. Like, he was outplaying Griezmann. Griezmann was poor, just full stop. But Amin Ghouri was fantastic.
Yeah.
In the tactic I was playing. And Mbappe was okay as well, but I think that, like, Griezmann was the fault, I think, of your team, because, like you said, the link wasn't there to Mbappe, so therefore he didn't perform. And then morale's in the toilet, and that's pretty much
just
it,
gone.
isn't it?
I knew by match day 4. I was like, and I tweeted. Thing is, I'd done some testing the day before against Mike's team of all teams, thinking that Mike's team's solid and he's going to stick with that. So I can practice against that, knowing he's not going to change from it. He didn't. Worst team to practice against, it turns out. And I played, like, because obviously we all get given the teams amongst us, and if we want to play each other before the tournament just to try things and to play a little bit of PvP, we can. So I played Jack and I played Holly like 3-4 games. Got smashed. So I realised at that point, I was like, okay, this is going to be. I didn't get smashed actually, but there were close defeats, and I'm thinking, I can see this happening all weekend. And I even tweeted, like, this is going to go. I don't think this is going to go well. I think I'm going to be in the elimination game. And everyone's like, oh, you're just playing it down. You're playing the reverse of what you normally do. I'm sitting there thinking, no, I really think I'm in trouble. and then I've got no points after match day 7. I'm thinking, how do they believe me at this point? Because I really didn't think I was going to do well. And then Saturday was like, Saturday I was unlucky. I should have had 8 points more based on the XG table, whatever that means. But yeah, then Sunday rolled around and it was just same old. Yeah, poor from me. Sorry, everyone. I'll be better next time, whenever next time is. Again, sabbatical, holiday, gardening leave, all sorts are going to be
gardening
deployed.
Leave is after you've been sacked, so. I
mean, I would have been. I had a board meeting mid-season, so if I didn't turn up for that, they were like, "You're out on your ear." So no, yeah, it was a story. It was a story of 2 things, wasn't it? Really, it was the Holly RDF domination of the newbies, and it was me and Mike, a finalist and a 3-time finalist, in the absolute mud. I feel for second yellow card now. Now I know how it feels. Yeah, it wasn't. I had a great time streaming though. It was really weird. Like I didn't order a kebab and get drunk, but I did have a lovely time. So yeah, nice to set the record for the worst league performance of all time.
Joint.
goal difference, it was 2 worse. I'll tell
goal
everyone.
difference doesn't count anymore, but
That's very true, actually, and I'll be telling everyone that in the future. So yeah, we roll on to Sunday. I'm eliminated before it begins. The first time Ellie, I go downstairs. I say to Ellie, "Do you want to order an Indian and just watch it?" She went, "Yeah." So we just watched it for 2.5 hours, just sitting there enjoying the quarters and the semis. And then we'll get onto it. Luckily, I decided to go upstairs and sit on my computer for the final, which turned out to be a good choice. But Holly plays. Matthew, let's talk about her. Goodness gracious me. She's been streaming for five months. She's a journalist with The Athletic and does some great stuff with them. Has been playing Football Manager as part of, like, she's been writing pieces on it. It's been part of her whole thing recently. She's been streaming for a couple of years. Probably, I think some people didn't know that. I think people thought she just picked up FM and that was her streaming journey. But no, she's been doing Rocket League and Valorant and some other stuff for a number of years. But it was really picked up with FM. Jack found her, and that was it. So that boosts her a little bit. But she puts in like an amazing amount of work streaming, considering she does something else. Like, it's a bit like us in this, really. Like, she really does commit to it. And she was great. Like, and we talked about her for a couple of months. I think she was brought up after season 1, and I think I said not yet. Like, there'll be a point when she will be ready, but she's not quite there yet. She just hasn't streamed quite enough, right? And I knew her stream was going to grow, and I thought she's going to be able to deal with a few like high numbers here, and it's going to impact how she streams for the better. And it really did. Some people don't need that, but I felt like she did just need that little bit of encouragement, almost, to say, do you know what? I deserve to be here, and I'm good enough to be here. And she had that. She had that in spades, and then comes in Halujo, kevs it up in the draft and in how she plays, and can I do swears?
You can do swears if you want.
It effing worked, is what I'll say. I can't believe it worked quite as well as it did, but it worked so well. And just dispatches, first through Dizz, gets rid of him, then Stinger, bins him off, and then deals with Zealand the Cannon Shannon in the final. I love that he hates it. Zed Lasso himself. Which is great, by the way. I love that he's buying into the Zed Lasso thing.
One of the revelations of the weekend was finding out how much Z can rock a tash.
Yeah, I know. You should get rid of it now. But yeah, it's good. Yeah, I talked to him last month about the fact, like I said to him, you've got to get the gear. Like, you've got to look like him soon, which I thought was going to be good, and he did, and rocked it really well. There's this really awkward moment where he doesn't quite fully commit to the believe thing because it's just on the wall next to him, not above.
Yeah.
So he sort of just goes, believe. I'm thinking, it's not really how he works in the show.
Jump and slap it if you're going to do it.
I know you're in a Manhattan apartment, but you've got to give it more than that, Cannon. Come on. You've got to give it more than that. But let's talk about it briefly. What a performance from Z to get back to another final and come so close. And who knows, if not for a technical hitch, maybe he might have won.
Do we have to talk about Dominic Solanke? Because
I'd
rather we didn't.
No, we don't. Good. So let's talk about the technical issue, though.
Before we do that, what I wanted to mention was I'm going to be slightly controversial here. Holly was quite lucky to get to the final because of her XG against was insanely high, but basically David De Gea saved her. I think she conceded 6 goals. I think I might be slightly wrong because I'm going off sort of slightly old things pre-final. But I think she conceded 6 goals throughout the entire tournament.
I think it might be an 8, but yeah,
it's ridiculous low. And her XG against was like 28 or something stupid. So the number of like fantastic chances she was giving away, but they just weren't being finished by her opposition, was insane. On another day, if the luck modifier had been reset, for example, it could have been very different.
Yeah, and she only played Mbappe once, so unbelievable, really, when you consider it. But and on that, I don't want Holly will definitely watch this. How you doing, Holly? I don't want to think that we're taking away from what she did, because let me tell you, this is equally controversial, and I know what people are going to say, but let me tell you, everybody that's won a Streamer Showdown, in some respect, got a little bit lucky. So the fact he's won 7 blows my mind. But yeah, but genuinely, like, it's obviously you're playing to fight that as well, though, right? You're setting up to if you have moments of unluckiness, it's how you adapt to those moments and have players to come in. And Kev does that brilliantly, better than anybody else does. But equally, to win 7 You got to be very lucky to win one. You got to have a good Sunday. Let's put it that way. And she did. So fair enough.
You're talking about having a good Sunday. Vlahovic had the best of Sundays. He scored 2 goals in the league stage, then scores 8. I think he scored 7 in the knockouts, and he ended up top goal scorer with 9, which came out of nowhere and beat Dominic Solanke. So I do like Vlahovic a little bit more than I did now. Yeah,
we had an awful lot of people watching on the Sunday, Matthew, which is just the time you want a technical issue.
Absolutely.
So for those that missed it, we get to the final. I think it's around 70 minutes in. Holly disconnects from the game, and then in the same highlight she disconnects in, she scores to make it 1-1. She's already had Joe Gomez sent off. And at that point, I get the cape on. I'm like, right, this is my moment. Here we go. I'm ready to get to work. And I said, it's funny, I watched the first 2 knockout stages downstairs. And I said to Ellie, I'm going to watch the final on my computer because I always know something could happen. And I got to be there for that. Admittedly, if it had happened beforehand, I'd be sprinting upstairs, go, right, hang on, I'll fix this. But yeah, I'm there on the iPad chilling out and then thinking, actually, I don't know. Someone said something to me, Matt. I don't know if it was you or my ear going, get upstairs and start working. So, Holly disconnects, and did you know to begin with? Did you know she disconnected?
We'd seen that a disconnection had happened. It obviously wasn't her fault that she'd been disconnected, but we'd seen all of a sudden Z was still in the game, she wasn't, and then it was like, right. We need to clarify, and I think I'd said, we'll wait for Ben before we make a decision on this, and sort of came out of final mode and waited just to make sure, because I didn't want to make the call just in case, because we've had it happen in other games, but in other stages and in the league when we've had other issues with divergence and what have you, and we've had to sort of stop, restart, resim to make sure we get the results required to make sure things aren't unfair, and then go again. Whereas when that's in the final, it's a bit more delicate, I think. Especially, I mean, that situation, we were really fortunate that it was a draw. Although Holly was down to 10, it was 1-1 at the time. The alternate scenario is Z's taken full advantage. He's 5-1 up. He knows he's playing the AI, and he goes, right, I'm going to spend the next 20 minutes doing something I wouldn't do against a human, and dominates. Equally, if she scores, it's like, well, Holly didn't do that. I don't want that. Mike had that, didn't he? Mike had that in the semi-finals against Kev.
Yeah, and Tom and Z had a thing months and months ago, years and years ago at this point, when they had a disconnection issue. It's funny because as soon as it happens, I know exactly what, I don't know, maybe it's just good practice or being in the mindset of tournament organizer. What am I going to do in this situation? I knew exactly what I was going to do as it happened. I went into Holly and Z. I said, don't worry, we'll restart it. We're going to go from it's clean slate, basically. And you're right, it's lucky that Holly scored because the circumstances change. If Z's 4-0 up in that situation, it's not the same decision. I have to make a call which I consider to be fair, or as fair as it can be. And I think giving them both a clean slate while it's a draw is probably fair enough. I understand that Joe Gomez got sent off. As much as you might say it's unlucky for Z, it's unlucky Holly got a red card in a final. She's not decided that. It's not a tactical error, right? She's not put the wrong player in the wrong position. She had a man sent off, which is, again, relatively unlucky. That said, if Z's 4-0 up, I'm either letting the game carry on, or I'm saying, let's simulate it again so he's got a lead. I don't really care what the lead is. I want him to have the advantage because he's earned the advantage at that point. But because of the way it happened, it made sense to just reset. Then I tell Millie, restart, we're going to go again. And then I join you on the lowdown and quickly clarify for everyone watching. Again, there's about 8,000 people watching at that point. I want to make sure everyone knows what is going on. So, quickly dealt with. And then within 3 or 4 minutes, we're back underway again. And we're back. So even when you have someone disconnected a final, we have a process that is quite straightforward.
I mean, that wasn't the only technical issue we had, was it? In the final, because I don't know if it was because of that, whether Twitch was having one.
Yeah,
but we had the worst latency we've ever had throughout all of the showdowns we've done. We've never had latency like that. So all of the lowdown panelists watch their streams, or watch the streams that they are commentating on locally. And then usually it's within a couple of seconds. Like we normally, I usually get the feed slightly faster than them, but that's probably the best situation to be in. But it's a matter of a second, if that. It's normally pretty seamless. But for whatever reason, Luke and Dan, when it came to the second leg of the final, was so. In fact, Kev was as well. All of them, so. It was like 10, maybe even 15 seconds behind. They were calling action that was happening, and it was. I mean, in the end, I had to take over, which I was going to do it. Obviously, you said just take over. Someone tell him stop commentating because it's getting ridiculous. But like, I was going to be making that decision anyway. I was trying to get to half time and then see what happens. And in the end, it was just like, right, I have to step in and bring this home, unfortunately. And
in that situation, it's not Dan's, so it's not anyone's fault, right? It's just a case of they know as well as we do. It has to be like the broadcast has to come first here. We need to rescue this to a point of let's do it. For those that watched the last Cooldown, Matt, what are the spectator modes? For manager you watching, it would be really helpful if we could get a spectator mode that everyone could sit and watch the games in. But yeah, it was really interesting to see the way it turned out. And it's like on one level, like for me, it's quite fun having to make a big decision like that. But on another level, it's like, can we not have to deal with this? I really do like it to be a flawless process. But I guess I'm not throwing them too much under the bus. But in the week that Football Manager come out with some fixes and bug fixes for online, we were disconnection in the final, which feels because the game didn't go down.
Poignant.
So like. Yeah, it was interesting. The game could, like Millie hosting was fine. Holly was able to reconnect, but even then we always get the person to reset the server so we can start afresh. And then unfortunately there was no issues, and Holly went on to win. Z was great about it as well. Worth saying, right? Z was fantastic about it.
I mentioned that on the lowdown as well. Z has been in. Well, I mentioned that it seems to be always Z that's involved in these situations, but he's always gracious about it as well.
Yeah, he was really good. Which again, it goes back to what we said at the very start, that you have to make sure people are ready to handle that sort of situation. I think Holly had this moment of guilt of I've disconnected and I had 10 men. What do I do? It's like you just start as a fresh. Everything's fine. Like she had to restart her stream as well. Like it really was a night of Twitch and OBS and dear me. But despite all of that, we got what we wanted, but we got a real good competition, a really good final still, super close, super competitive. And a new champion at the end of it, which she loved. Like you could see how much it meant to her to be streaming only 5 months and to care that much. She enjoyed it even more than beating me and competing against Jack. Like she absolutely loved it. Her and her housemate Dana were great value as well. Like I don't know if they realise how much that's going to like now be moment. Like as much as Dizz's moment was big, winning was big too.
Had a celebration like that, have we? Like. Proper streamers involved in, I mean by like the popped kind rather than competitors. I just realised
I was thinking, how many files have I got in? Yeah.
But the one word that I forgot to mention at the end of Sunday, she's a trailblazer as well. Like I don't like usually like labelling things, but at the same time, first female streamer to be involved in an actual showdown. Obviously, we've mentioned Kimmy in this episode already, but she was on the lowdown. But the first female streamer involved in an actual showdown, and then the first female to win a showdown in the debut as well as being the first female to win a showdown. So all of the records.
Yeah, and I know that like while we don't want to label Holly as the female, she's also super proud of that. Like she's really happy to have done that. And I hope, and we've said this 100 times, we can't make people stream, but I hope it does encourage people to come forward, and especially seeing someone that absolutely crushes it in the way that she does as a streamer. Right, that's the thing that's important to me. If people look at that and go, I could do that, and that's what I want people to come away from showdowns and think. I don't want streamers to think, I'll never be in a showdown. I want them to think, I'll be in a showdown. RDF said it a year ago. He was like, I will be in a showdown one day. And guess what? Here he is.
Stinger said exactly the same as well, didn't he?
Yeah, of course.
That was his line in the sand he wanted to get to, and obviously managed to do it as well. So and again, really good value for it. Just a little bit before we get to some questions from Twitter. Once again, I think people are always interested, right? We have production values. Again, there was lots of little bits. You mentioned the camera change for the exit interviews. Proudy did some really nice work again. Goal of the month or goal of the tournament. I think goal of the tournament was.
It is goal of the month though, in a way, right? It still counts. It's still the month, but yeah.
Technically, yeah. I mean, I guess when we do other showdowns that maybe span multiple months, might be a bit more difficult. But
very
goal
much
of the
season
tournament
threes. Yeah, goal of threes tournament. But yeah, again, a really nice little production element for us to add in at the end, and the chat were really involved. I was vicious. I was thinking, blimey, but yeah, really good. Really nice to see so many people enjoying that, and loads of other little bits over the weekend. I don't know if you counted, but I think I got the number right, but it's pretty close. We've gone from having what was essentially 12 people involved with 8 competitors and 4 in a lowdown. Because even the host was either on the lowdown or in the showdown, like in those early years.
Yeah, I was, because I was on the lowdown and being the host quite often.
So we've gone from having 12 people to this weekend, and you didn't see them all, but we had 30 people over the course of the weekend doing stuff. Whether that was production stuff. In fact, do you know what? It's even more than that, because I'm not including some of the guys on YouTube this week as well, who have done some really good work, and we should probably talk about that in a minute as well. But yeah, 30 people over the course of just the weekend that were involved, that would be behind the scenes, getting stuff for Proudy to make the clipping easier. Again, massive shout out to the people that for each streamer went through and were clipping things up ready for us to use in different montages. And not just for now, I think that's important, right? It's not just for now. If we ever have to go back and get clips for something, we've got all of that data written down. We've got all those streams locked and loaded. So yeah, that's again a real benefit for us. And yeah, production elements, as we mentioned before, as well as all the guys that you see on stream as well. But yeah, it was a monumentous effort. Monumentous, is that the word? Yeah, monumentous effort. And you are sort of, as much as there's a pyramid to all of this, are you at the top or the bottom? I'd say you are laying a lot of foundation, was how I was going to put it. But equally, it sort of ends with you. So how would you describe it?
I guess I'm the bottleneck, certainly.
So if you flip it upside down, you're at the top, and you're
I think bottleneck is like important, but equally problematic if I get busy.
Yeah, no, I feel that. But luckily, this has become quite a big part of our lives, Matthew. So I feel like this is our busy at some point. But so for you having to then string it all together, basically. How did it feel now? How does it feel now compared to, say, season 6 of FM21? How different is it? Does it still feel as stressful, or is it more stressful, or did this weekend feel less stressful in a regard?
It doesn't matter how much time I give myself prep for. I have the similar conversation with Dan usually after we finish the lowdown, and either whether it be on the draft night or on the Saturday after the league stage, we'll have a similar conversation. And it doesn't matter how much time I give myself, I always find ways of taking up more time or adding new things in, and then always being rushed and being flustered before we start. Whether I look it on camera or not, I don't really know, but there are times when I'm massively stressed, because I think there's a lot of pressure now on making sure the broadcast goes as seamlessly as possible. I counted more errors that I made personally this week or weekend than I had done before, but I also think that that's because there are a lot more moving parts to make sure that things are working as they should be, and some things weren't, which then I have to then go try and fix on the fly. But in terms of, I don't know really, if I'm honest. I think the stress will always be the same. I get a lot less anxious. I think when I first started doing it, I used to get proper anxiety about things going wrong. Whereas I think I'm a bit more used to being able to fix most of them. And mostly, I'm touching all of the wood right now, but we've had one proper OBS crash in season 1 where it had enough, I think. And there is always a point where we're going to reach that sort of glass ceiling of the pipe cleaners and blue tack and sticky back plastic of how we're putting a production together. We're going to have to migrate to something a bit more robust. I'm not looking forward to it, because that's a lot of work to replicate. Like the number of scenes in OBS has just got... I lost count. I counted at the start of season 1, and it was over 150. It's surpassed that now. So it will only continue to grow. I'm already looking to what I want, like for spoilers. I'm looking to adjust the elimination playoff and final look, and changing things. There's always little bits that I notice that I want to do, or that you suggest or anyone else suggests. So it's always a moving. I think there's a reason why we don't set ourselves a target for anything really, and we don't have a goal. We want it to be here because the sky is the limit to a point with OBS anyway, and it was the case of we don't want to impose that limitation on ourselves and what we can achieve and get to. We'll try and find ways of making sure we can get there. And I do say no quite frequently to people, but it's not because I don't want to do it. It's because that we probably can't, or we need something in place before we are able to do it.
There's still a big list of things that we'd love to do, but we understand our limitations. I should say, for those that understand OBS, it's not a new competitor. It could be with the amount of 3-letter abbreviations we have. It's the program that is used to stream. So just in case someone's not familiar with that, Matt has a lot of those. An average streamer, for example, some will have like 4 scenes. I myself have about, I would say, 7 or 8. For the showdown, Matt requires over 150. It's a big old.
150, and I genuinely think I might need another stream deck as well. Like,
oh my, so it's like 4. It's like 4. You'll have
that'd be 4. Yeah.
4, blimey. Goodness me, we need to get you one of those massive decks, and again, about 3 people working in your office at the same time, and that would solve a few problems. But no, again, like such a successful weekend. Sponsored by Manscaped as well, which was great. Benny talked about it, but we did it over the weekend. They got plenty of advertisement there. But yeah, great to have a new sponsor on board as well. You know, with KFC. I saw you drinking your KFC mug. Never forget. You know, always remember.
Just the first one out of the cupboard, if I'm honest. It's just
all right. But great to have them. Great to have them on board. And again, like sent out stuff to some of the guys as well. So a good weekend all in all. Okay, I've got some questions from the people on Twitter. I've just refreshed it, so there could be about to read anything here, Matt. It could be very dangerous.
Talking about dangerous tweets, some of the Streamer Showdown tweets, they were dangerous. One in particular that Mad put into the. He said, "You might not want to show this one." Absolutely could not show that one. So if you look through the feed of our Twitter for the Streamer Showdown things, you'll be able to find it, and you'll probably understand which one it was. Anyway, but questions, Ben. Sorry.
There's a few quick ones we can do. Iron Owl FM asked the twist this time. Dizz's number 9 was perfect. Are you planning more surprise twists or anything as wholesome, or is there a return to the Showdown 1 level of evil? There'll be a mix. It'll always be a mix of what we do. Who knows? You know, we're always thinking of new things. I'm certain we've got some fun ideas for the next one as well. So yeah, this is a stay tuned and a little wink from me. Exciting times. Nathan B said, great weekend. Hopefully by the showing by the newbies is making you want to give other people opportunities every time from now on. The simple answer is no. It's not a factor for me. Like I don't know if maybe he's referring to the performance. If he's referring to the performance in terms of what they did in being runners up, being winners and runners up and then winning the whole thing. I like performance-wise, I don't really care. But in terms of them being streamers, they're fantastic. Like, and that's why they're involved. Again, we saw a few people ask about it, but generally people were really excited to see them involved. But that's it, really.
I think that's the one thing that people don't seem to grasp. It's that the tournament part of this kind of comes secondary to all of it, right? It's a piece of entertainment. Like, obviously, it's centered around a draft and a tournament. So there is always that competitive nature. But how good someone actually is at Football Manager doesn't really factor that much into our decision-making process at all.
No. And ultimately, it's a case of, are there... So with,
I mean, obviously, because you're
Holly,
still in it, Ben, so...
Thank you, mate. Three-time finalist, DoctorBenjy FM, everybody. 3-time finalist.
It's been a while. It has been a while since you were in a final, so... Yeah,
the amount of showdowns I've been in, bloody, you expect 3 finals. Goodness me. Expect 3 wins. Ultimately, again, it comes down to the fact of, if they're good streamers, they're on our radar already, and at some point they'll be in. Holly and RDF are great examples of that. If we don't think people are ready yet, then they're not. When it comes to putting new people in every time, only if those people are out there that we think are ready. Like, again, it's a bit cutthroat and maybe it's a bit harsh to hear, but we're making the call, and I'd be surprised if anyone thinks we got this one wrong. So again, I'm pretty happy with the decision we made. Original Tomo 91. Are you considering doing a draft with South American players? Only to mix it up a bit, to throw the competition to quick thinking. I think we'll definitely see them. The pool is not that deep, Matt. We've talked about this before. The South American player pool is not as deep, and there's a balance to be had between having players people have heard of and players that are interesting to play with and draft at the same time. So we need to have a balance of that. South America, we talked about it, right, is tricky in that.
Well, also, like from a lowdown perspective, I'm not saying that everyone is an expert in every league, but I think you do need to have a certain level of knowledge about certain players. And when a lot of people are being drafted who aren't great, it's difficult to be a good pundit, even if it is in relation to Football Manager, when you don't really know the player that well in real life. It's nice to have an understanding of what they are. And also when it comes to, we get the occasional random picks, even with the European draft pools that we've had, where it's particularly Z usually, you get a left field pick and none of us know who he is, never even seen him in game. And even though all of the guys on the lowdown do have the game loaded up, you're really just sort of giving advice on attributes rather than basing it off anything in terms of how he might play, other than I'm assuming because he's a giant, he's going to be amazing in the air. But like making those assumptions doesn't really, it's not really the insight, I guess, that we're being used for.
Yeah, it falls under sort of, it sounds so general, one of those things. Right, it's not always going to be the case that we can use all of the players all of the time. We have to keep things interesting. So there's always a balance to be found, right? There's not to say we don't want to include certain divisions or certain players. It's just, again, it's all about timing. Like a lot of the showdown decisions feel like that.
I mean, we did chat about, for this pool, you having because some of the South American teams have already qualified for the World Cup. We did discuss maybe having them as wildcards, but equally. And I guess this also goes down to having new people in all the time. We don't want to burn like so many people at once, because then it undersells the people who are being involved. If we ended up having 5 newbies in one tournament, they don't get their moment in the sun. And that's the one thing I'm particularly conscious of, is that we don't... You throw one, it causes a nightmare with that's then 5 people who don't really know what they're doing. They've never been in a showdown before. They don't know how it works. Yeah. So you lose... instantly. You've got then 4 people having to hold the hands of those. But also, I think it's 3 in a showdown is probably the most we've done for quite a while. Dizz kind of, he's a one that straddles both lines. He's been involved in the lowdown. He's involved in showdowns. People know of him. He's associated with it. So I guess we kind of 2.5. I guess in terms of newbies, because he was new to the showdown. But
it's all like that. He's a half. 0.5 is Dizz.
Little Dizz.
In every respect, 0.5. Sorry, Dizz.
but I think giving each new person an opportunity to enjoy that moment of being selected is invitational for a reason. Like ultimately, we want, when it comes to the announcements coming out, we want them to feel hyped and not feel like an also ran. It's like, oh, there's also another 3 people who are also new. I feel like it would dilute their moment of being a new person, because we've then got... It also makes it difficult for sort of a narrative perspective, in terms of these are 5 people who don't have sort of stories for the showdown. We kind of have to try and pluck them out, which I think we are pretty good at, in terms of finding the bits, the important narrative trails throughout a weekend. But in terms of the I'm going to say gimmicks, because some of them maybe are, but I think we also didn't want to undersell the sort of the twist in terms of mystery manager, and also then the change to the crop reviver as well, which maybe was slightly underwhelming, but I think it proved over the weekend it was actually quite a large change in the end.
Yeah, as much as, and it's like, just to go back to the original question of South American players, the same applies, to sort of expand from Matt's point, the same applies to the competitors as does the players that we're drafting. There becomes a bit of a meta of not only the people involved taking part and the storylines that they have continually, but there's equally a meta of the players that are being picked. So to have them again, can someone get more out of Mbappe than I did? Will someone use, I don't know, a Dominic Solanke as a budget pick?
They're going to struggle to get less, aren't they, really? So.
But to take him away from Zealand, right? The interesting thing, thank you, Matt, I'm ignoring it. But because the interesting thing with Solanke is he's a championship player. We don't have championship players in very often at all. Like you could count on two fingers probably the amount of times we've involved championship players, but because he's English, he was available to be selected and above under 500k. Again, that was one of the things we put in just to limit the pool a little bit from being like 6,000 and instead be 3,000. And I like those storylines that continue to sort of evolve. And again, contrasting how one person does with them compared to another, like it'd be a really interesting thing on a Sunday now. Say someone does pick Mbappe and you compare how one person did with him compared to what I did with him. But it's a great point to bring up. Like, I want those things to exist. So again, you don't want to burn every single draft option to you, but you do want to keep it fresh and keep it interesting to people. And I think the budget is a great way to do that. Like, that's arguably the most important bit of the whole draft. Don't mind the pool, the budget basically dictates what a draft is going to look like. And that's how we can make predictions on what's going to happen. Lots of other questions as well. A few have been answered by us in the show. So if you feel like your question has been answered, good, basically. There's a few other interesting questions. There were 8.5 thousand people watching the final across 3 channels. Was this a record? I'm pretty sure that would have been a record at any one time. We may have beaten it when we've been on the front page of Twitch as an overall. Might have got very, very close to that. But I think as like a one moment in the final, seeing that many people watching was ridiculous. So they said, do you think we could hit 10k in April? No, I mean, my simple answer is never say never. I don't know. I'd hate to predict that. but equally, like one of the factors in that is that Z is streaming and he's in another final and has 4,000 people watching, and that's not going to be the case for every streamer. So you have to sort of balance that against everything else. But it was great to see so many people at one time watching in so many different ways, right? It's still really exciting for us. Tom Little asks, how nice is it to see new people come in and not only mix in so well, but also perform really well in both phases? I don't care, Tom, is the answer. And how funny was it reporting to the lowdown while Ben's team collapsed and let him down after it seemed to be another good draft on paper, especially killing? It was hilarious, Tom. Yeah, oh God, classic comedy, wasn't it? Seeing my team be absolute dog shit. So fun, Tom. I'm fine. I promise I'm fine. I'm not fine. I'm not fine. Final question, because it's a conversation we've had, and I'm going to throw a spanner in the works. Matthew, you're going to love this. Do you think this was from Sean the Beag? Do you think squad dynamics played a big part in the good performances Holly got from her team? Having 3 starters from the same team help a lot? ? We've had some big conversations in the last month about squad dynamics, which led to me drafting a team from all French speaking. As you can see, viewers, it works brilliantly. But there is a point that the showdown is a sort of an England-based league, and Kevy 7 times and Holly Plays have both selected quite heavily English-speaking and English teams. And there's always ways to balance this. You could give everyone the opportunity to speak English if you want. That's one way you could attempt to balance that, or give everyone the same nationality in an attempt to balance that. But it's not a conversation that's ever come up before. But Z's win and having like so many German speakers sort of led to different conversations about that. I guess the answer is, and you can confirm or deny this, is we're keeping an eye on it, basically. Because sometimes we'll have things go against it, but sometimes it will play into this conspiracy, we'll call it, of dynamics.
It may well be one of those conspiracies. I think it's not the same. If it is a thing, I don't think it will have as bigger impact as other things do. In terms of like your dynamics makeup, yes, I think you showed screenshots of your team and like basically all being in the same group, but I think there are other things that affect morale more significantly, which will have a greater impact on your general performance.
Which is losing, right? I assume we've been losing.
Like, I feel like the tactical familiarity and the whole sort of dynamics section, morale is incredibly important. And I think it's fascinating seeing how different people manage things like press conferences in showdowns. Some people don't care, just get the assistant manager to do it. I would never trust my assistant manager to do that.
Yeah. There's no rule on it. You can either do them or not do them. It's absolutely fine.
Like we see the likes of Z. It's like blood from a stone, squeezing every inch and ounce out of his team, and every opportunity he's got to maximize what he's got, he will try and use it. And whereas other people are just like, well, you see what happens with Dizz. He just gets click happy and does everything.
But even Kev, I'm pretty sure, I don't think Kev does them. But so it's like, it might give you that extra somewhat percent. And some people might say, well, you don't need that extra percent. Like it's pretty split. Like, again, it's hard to know. And equally, and this sort of is probably the best way to summarize it. There's a lot of me that doesn't want to know. I don't want to know what influences all of these like hidden things. If the competitors want to find it out and they find something and then they write a book in 5 years and go, how I won 20 streamer showdowns, Kevin Chapman, then you know what? Then fair enough, right? And I'd love to find out what the real plan is, other than getting extraordinarily lucky. But yeah, like again, I almost don't want to know what works in the complete, like in the workings of Football Manager. That will check me out of the game entirely if I find out how it works. So yeah, I kind of like the way it is right now. I like the fact there's still a lot of question marks over lots of things. But again, we're keeping an eye on it, keeping an eye on the squad dynamic stuff, because it's fascinating to lots of people, including us.
It is indeed. That's why we play the game.
Indeed. I think that wraps us up, Matthew. I think that's season 3 in the books. I say in the books, we're going to have plenty more videos coming out on the channel. A lot more content as well. We mentioned the website in the last one. We should, by the next one, again, I said it before, but again, I shouldn't preempt this too much. But I think we're getting closer to having a website, which is going to be really exciting, which will team up with a lot of the content you're seeing on the YouTube channel. Hopefully you're enjoying it. If you've not checked it out, there's interviews pre-showdown last time, as well as lots of stuff coming this week as well. Massive shout out to the guys, both editing and in front of camera with that stuff. Yeah, really looking forward to seeing what the guys produce this week as well. And it's going to be a more continual thing. So make sure you are subscribed to the channel. The Streamer Showdown team are putting together a whole lot more for your eyes and your ears, especially if you like competitive Football Manager, draft mode specifically. And I'm looking forward to seeing what comes in the future. Thank you, Matthew. Pleasure as always. What a weekend.
What a weekend indeed. I'll also make sure we plug the Twitch channel, which is FM Streamer Showdown. Make sure you're following there, and also follow us on Twitter as well, which is the FM Showdown. So
indeed, please do.
Yeah, in the description.
Interaction was amazing over the weekend. Mad did a great job on the socials again. Really
I think, yeah, absolute hero he was. The Meme Showdown has been one of my favourite additions. I sorely missed it in season 2, just because unfortunately he wasn't as available as he had been for season 1. Trying to throw someone else into that environment, and he just has a knack for grabbing amazing animated feeds from like 9 streams. He just has an incredible knack for it.
Yeah, as a man that loves a moment, I'm a big fan of Matt. Big fan of Matt. All right, take care, everybody. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video. Again, leave your thoughts in the comments, and me and Matt will try and get to all of the interesting ones. So with love, with care from me, Ben, and him, Matt. We'll see you again soon for season 4, which is, just very quickly, it's on, tell me I'm right, Matthew, the 27th, the 30th, and the 1st of May. Season 4. Season 4 of the show. I'm coming soon.
Bye, everyone.